Okay, are we ready?
It's up to you guys. Go for it.
Okay, can you continue where you were at, a little while ago? Mr. Maxwell,
Yeah, do you want me to talk about the,
whatever you want to talk about.
okay.
How about talk about Jordan? How about you talk about that? We're on a UFO subject right now.
The UFO experience that happened.
Yeah,
Talk about the what?
the one you went to your friend's. You were gonna be the best man at your friend's wedding, and an old mansion. Let's start from there, Jordan.
Okay.
All right, perfect.
Back about 25 years ago. Are we recording this now?
Yes,
Yes.
you're getting recorded.
About 25 years ago, I was invited by my friend who worked at General Motors in Van Nuys. When General Motors used to be in Van Nuys,
Yes.
my friend was middle management. And he was getting married, and he wanted me to be his best man at his wedding.
Nice.
So what I did is I drove up, because he lived up in Palmdale, which is north of Los Angeles,
Yes.
about, I don't know, 25, 30 miles or more.
Yes.
And so what we did is I drove up there on a Saturday morning to his home. And he was going to be married that night, Saturday night. And so I drove up to his home, and he and I sat in the front room while his bride-to-be and her family, her mom and girlfriend, they went to go out to the market. So they went out to the market, and while they were at that market, they came back. When they came back, we have a big plate glass window in the front room, so we could see everything happening on the street. And when she drove up with the girlfriend, when she drove up, there was a man behind her in an old car, an old guy in an old car, and he was behind her. And he pulls in and parks and gets out. We wondered, who's this? Who's this guy? So when she came in, she said, this man met me in the market, and he said, I need to talk to the best man at your wedding, and he's at your home, and I need to talk to him. And I said, well, that's me, so talk to me. And he said, I've been told to tell you that a year and a half from now, you're going to be out in the desert, and the ETs are going to show themselves to you. He said, you're going to be driving the car, and there's going to be a woman in the front seat and a man in the back seat, because they want two witnesses, a woman and a man, to see, but the whole event is for you, but they want witnesses, a woman and a man. So the woman will be in the front seat, the man will be in the back. And they want to meet you, they want you to see them. But it won't happen for a year and a half. So a year and a half later, I was invited to speak at a UFO conference by Bob Brown, the Bob Brown conference on UFOs. And so it was about 30 or 40 miles past Las Vegas, east of Las Vegas. And so on Sunday morning, I was driving home. And I had a lady friend in the front seat and my man friend in the back seat. And I didn't think about it at the time, but I thought about it for a moment. I thought, you know what? I do have a woman in the front seat and a man in the back. That's in my head. So I said to them, I said, you know what? I was told a year and a half ago that you were going to be here in this car and I'm going to be driving. And I told them that and told them about the prophecy. I'm glad I told them before it happened. And I said, and we're supposed to be out in the desert. Well, I talked with this man that came by with my friend's wife, and he said, you're going to be out in the desert. And I said, well, sometimes I come up here to Palmdale and look out and look for UFOs. He said, no, this is way out in the desert. You're going to be way out in the desert, not in California. And you're going to be seeing them. They're going to show themselves to you.
Wow.
And so on the way home from my conference, I had the lady in the front seat. Her name was Ivy West. She was a talk show host in Hawaii. She has a radio show in Hawaii. And then I had the man in the back seat, which was Paul Tice. His name was Paul Tice, T-I-C-E. He owned a big bookstore in San Diego. And I lived in San Diego, close to him. So I took Ivy back to the airport, the Los Angeles airport first, so she could go home. Then Paul and I drove down to San Diego and home. And so, but before all that happened, I asked, that's what I was going to do. But when we were going to Las Vegas, I asked my two friends, either one of you ever been up to Area 51? No. They said, no, we haven't. Let's go.
Nice.
And so the lady who owns the bar and the restaurant and the motel has heard of me. She knows me because she's talked to me on the phone because I used to do radio in Las Vegas. So she would invite me to come up. She was always calling me, why don't you come up? You come up and be my guest.
And what restaurant and hotel that is?
It's a restaurant called the Little Ailey Inn. The Little Ailey Inn. It's an incredible place. You have to see it to believe it.
Okay.
And it's right there at Area 51, but it's not in Area 51. It's just outside of Area 51.
Yeah.
A little town called Rachel. Rachel, Nevada is a very small, little, tiny town.
What's the population there, Jordan?
I don't think there is one. I don't know. Probably 100, maybe.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, then let's go. If you want to go, I'll go. So we turn around and we drive back to Nellis Air Force Base and then go the north of that. It's a highway. And then we're going up to Rachel, Nevada. And it's a 2-hour drive. And then when we get there, I see my friend Pat, who owns the restaurant and the bar.
Okay.
And she said, you stay here if you want to. Stay as long as you want. You can have that motel room right there. You can have it.
Nice.
Thank you. So then I said to Pat Travis, who runs the restaurant, I said to her, where did we go to see UFOs?
Nice.
And she said, and her husband was next there, her husband said, you don't have to go anywhere. They know who you are. They're watching you. You don't have to go anywhere. If they want you to see them, they'll show up. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about where you need to go.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, I was talking to your wife. And so Pat, the wife, she said, well, if you want to go where everybody else goes. Go out on the highway, right here, the highway, and go back toward Las Vegas. 19 and a half miles back to Las Vegas. 19 and a half miles, check it on your speedometer. Exactly 19 and a half, you will see a big mailbox right there by the road. And she said that mailbox is a place where everybody parks. It's a big open area around the mailbox. And everybody goes out to the mailbox and parks because the landing strip at Area 51 is right there. Wow. It's over the mountain. So anything going into the landing strip or coming out, you're going to see. So everybody goes out to the mailbox.
Gotcha.
So,
okay. Makes sense.
So Pat said, go out to the mailbox and just sit. And maybe you'll see something, maybe you won't. If there's anything you're going to see, that's where you'll see it. So I got in the car, and that's what the old man had told me a year and a half ago. He said, you'll be driving, and be a woman in the front seat, a man in the back. So I got in the car, and I'm driving, and Ivy, my lady friend, sitting in the front seat, and Paul's in the back. And I drive out into the highway, but I go north, not south. not back to Las Vegas.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know. I didn't know I was doing it wrong. And so at 19 and a half miles, we watched it. We pulled out and stopped at 19 and a half miles, and I flipped on the bright lights. And we troll along very slowly looking for the mailbox, but there's no mailbox. And Ivy, sitting next to me, she said, well, we're going north. She said to go south.
Wow.
And I said, well, now you tell me. I didn't know. I forgot. And so she said, well, let's turn around and go back and we'll stay in the motel and then we're going to do it tomorrow night. We'll do it right tomorrow night. So I said, okay. So I started to pull away, and when I did, with the bright lights on, I could see there was a road, a real nice level road going out into the desert. And Ivy and Paul both said to me, let's go out in the desert. There's a road. Let's go out there. I said, the sky is overcast. You can't see anything. And if you want to go out in the desert, you're in the desert. We're 19 and a half miles into the desert.
Yeah.
We don't need to go out there. I don't want to go out there in a regular car. And then Ivy insisted, let's go out in the desert. Nobody's going to bother you. There's no signs. It doesn't say no trespassing. There's no signs. Let's just go out in the desert for a little bit. And I said, I don't want to go. She said, let's go out in the desert. So I said, okay, so we'll go out in the desert. So I drive on that well-level road go out about a half a mile, less than that. And when I got out there, I felt it. I felt very strongly something is wrong. I don't know what it is, but I know something is wrong. Mm-hmm. And I told Ivy, I said, I want to turn around and go home. Something's wrong here. I don't want to be here. And she said, at least stop the car and we'll get out for a minute. I said, why do you want to get out? You can't see nothing. It's overcast. Clouds everywhere. And so...
Pitch dark.
Yeah. And so I finally stopped the car and we get out. We shut off the lights and we get out. And if you look in the dictionary, look up the word dark. That's when you're in the desert with no lights, period. That's what dark is. I mean black, period black. Can't see anything, but I know the car's here, Ivy's there,
Oh, wow.
and my friend's in the back seat. I know that, but you can't see it. So I said to Ivy, I said, Ivy, what are we doing out here? It's black, you can't see anything. And when I said that, the clouds opened up in an oval shape, a little oval-shaped clouds opened up, and you could see the stars. Well, in total darkness, you can see any light at all. You see it instantly. So when the clouds opened up in an oval shape, we saw the stars. And Ivy said, look, the clouds are opening up. When she said that, two glowing discs, the size of the new moon, the size of a full moon, that there weren't just little lights, there were full moon size discs come in, and very slowly. They came in very, very slow. And they were radiating light off of the disc, was radiating light on the clouds above it. But they came in very slow, and they were absolutely frightening. I've never seen anything like that in my whole life. These two beautiful discs come in, and we're looking at these things, and they came in over the top of our head, and they stopped. 5 more came in behind them. 5 more. Wow. 2, 4, 5 more.
They all look a duplicate?
All of them were illuminated, and they were glowing bluish white. And I was scared to death. I don't mind admitting I was frightened, because you were able to know that this is not human. This is not us. This is not human. I don't know where they're from or who they are, but it's not human. And I felt like I was in the presence of a mighty, powerful power of some kind. And when you are in the front of something that you don't understand, but you know it's mega big, it's frightening. And I told Ivy, I said, Ivy, I don't like this. This is terrible. I want to get out of here. So I got back in the car. I said, get in the car. Let's get going. Let's get out of here. And Ivy and Paul was so impressed with him. They would talk about, they were crying and yelling at how beautiful they are and how gorgeous they are. Yeah, they are beautiful, but I'm scared. I'm going to get out of here. And so I got back in the car, and when I did, all 7 of those desks changed position instantly. In a blink of an eye, they boom, changed, and then they changed again. It was so incredible. In a blink of an eye, all 7 discs, the size of the lights here, changed in their configuration. And I knew we don't have that kind of technology. I don't care how good the pilot is, you can't change instantly. So I know there's something going on here, and I'm in the presence of something I don't understand. And it was frightening to me. And so I got in the car, and I said, get in the car or you can walk home, because I'm leaving. And so they realized I meant it. So they got in the car, the man in the back seat and the girl in the front seat. And we started to go off, but I hadn't turned the lights on. And I don't care how good and how straight the road is, you can't go an inch without lights. So I flipped the lights on. But I was thinking, if I flip the lights on, they're going to see me. Half of my brain told me that. The other half said they already saw you. They told you a year and a half ago they were going to be here.
Yeah.
They already know who you are. And there's no running away. There's no place to run. And so I thought to myself, I flip on the lights and put my foot to the floor. Whoa. Took off. I figure if you're going to have the lights, they're going to have to chase me because I'm getting out of there. And so when I put my foot to the floor, we took off toward the highway. I kept in mind, don't overshoot the highway. Because if you do, you're going to tear up the car on the other side in the desert. Now you're really in trouble if you mess with the car.
Yeah.
And so I skidded. I hit the brakes and skidded onto the highway. And as I skidded onto the highway, I turned and we're right there on the highway. Instantly, I felt safe. I felt safe instantly, and so did she. But Ivy and Paul, when I hit the gas to go, she started screaming and yelling. She was scared. Something was frightening her. And Paul in the back seat, he was yelling too. So I know they are doing something that must be scary. I kept yelling at them as loud as I could. Shut up! I'm already scared. Don't yell and scream. Just shut up! I'm trying to get out of here.
And they were looking outside the windows?
Yeah, they're looking out the window, and so I hit the brakes and quickly opened the door to see what they're yelling about. The 7 desks came down low, and they were right over our heads, moving.
Oh.
Right over our heads, moving moving in positions instantly. Boom. Lightning fast.
Right above you guys, right?
Right above us. And all I could think of is I knew this was not human. Now I am convinced they're not human. This is not U.S. military. I don't know what it is. I've never seen this before, but there's 7 discs. And so we go out on the highway, and then we felt safe. For some reason, we went out on the highway and felt safe.
And they were gone on the highway?
And they didn't follow us to the highway. It was like the dogs were chasing you off.
Yeah.
And when you left, then that's okay.
Okay.
And so they went back out, the disc went back out in the desert, went back out, and they're gone. What was that?
Of course.
And we sat out on the highway in my car with tears, laughing, frightened, incredible.
Everything, yeah.
Everything. Just all the emotions in you. I knew we had been through something terrible. It was beautiful, it was wonderful, it was strange. I've never seen anything like this in my life. But they didn't hurt us. We weren't hurt, and they've gone. So now we're just trying to catch up and crying and laughing and all the stuff that's going through our. And so when I said, let's go home and go back to the motel, and tomorrow night we'll see what else we'll see.
Going back to the LEN, right?
So, yeah, so we went back to the LEN and got the motel that the owner had given us. But when you go into the door, you go directly into the bathroom. But on one side of the bathroom was one bedroom, and the other was two beds in a bedroom. So Ivy is a very, very tough lady. She's been a lot of serious problems. She's like government agent. She was working with the DEA in Medellin cartel.
Yeah. Wow.
By herself.
Wow.
Smoked cigars. So that's a very tough lady. So I said to Paul, I said, Paul, why don't you take that bedroom with the one bed, and Ivy and I will take this one. Why? Because anything that's going to happen, I want to be with Ivy, not you. And so Ivy takes one bed, I take the other, and Paul takes the other room. But it's so close that we're talking at night. We're talking a bit, and we were asking, what did we see tonight? What was that we saw on the desert floor? The next morning I get up, everybody, Paul and I had gone to breakfast over at the restaurant. So I go over there, and there's Paul and Ivy sitting at a table in the restaurant with lots of people around them, and they're talking to them. I think they're telling the people what happened to us last night on the desert. No. Paul and Ivy are talking about the aliens that came in our bedroom last night. They actually came in to see us.
Wow.
And Paul said that when he was, after he fell asleep, he woke up all of a sudden, very well awake, extremely awake. And something picked him up on the back of his t-shirt, picked him up in bed, and he said above his head was a light. But when he looked up at the light, it was a light green color, not white. A light green color, but it was a hologram. It was an alien's face, but you could see through it, and you could see the ceiling above it. It was a hologram of an alien's face, and the face slid across the ceiling, and it hit the wall, and then came down to where he was sitting in bed directly with him. And the face looked at him and telepathically asked him, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" And Paul said, "I was frightened to death. This thing is talking to me. I could hear it." And he said, "I tried to tell him, I'm just a tourist. Don't worry about me. I'll be gone tomorrow. I'll leave tonight if you want me to." And he said, he said that alien went through my mind. And all I've ever done, everything I've ever done in my whole life, I saw all of it, everything. Everything I've ever done and ever said in my whole life went through my head instantly. And he said, what was crazy about it, it was only a second or two when all my life went in front of me, but I understood everything that was going through my head. I understood it, just in a blink of an eye. When Ivy was sleeping in my room, she was looking toward, she was on our left side, and looking toward the other room, the other bedroom. And she said she saw some sort of a greenish reflection on the wall. That was the alien's face. And he said, Paul said, when I saw that alien's face, my room began to circulate. I could see the window going around, the doors going around, the whole room is circulating around me. And he said, I didn't understand. All I know is I see this alien's face and the walls and everything going around. And he said, so he was So when I went to the restaurant the next morning, I thought they were talking about what happened out in the desert. No, they were talking about what happened in the bedroom.
Oh, great story. And that alien, did they say, was it gray alien? Did he specify?
No, they were just typical alien-looking face.
Okay.
But obviously it was some kind of a hologram. And so when I said to them sitting at the table, I said, well, they didn't wake me at all. I didn't see anything. And Pat Travis, the owner of the restaurant, was there. She said, they know who you are. They don't want to bother you. They know who you are. And they know you've got a bad heart, so they didn't want to scare you. They let you sleep. They were just playing around with your two friends. They're just playing with them.
Yeah.
They're not going to hurt anybody. So.
What was it? Two things from the aliens that he asked for them not to do for you?
Yeah.
The two things.
Yeah, but that's different.
Okay, got it. Okay, we'll leave it. Go on.
So about 2 months later, I'm back in San Diego. We took Ivy back to the airport. She went back to Hawaii, and Paul and I were both living in San Diego. And I was running a company back then. I was in charge of a large printing company, a printing establishment. And I rented a new Chrysler convertible. And I drove back up to Rachel, Nevada, Area 51, by myself. I want to go back up and see it in the daytime and figure out what happened here, where all of the stuff that happened.
Very curious you were.
I want to go back up there by myself and look at everything again and see what was going on. And so I drove back up there, and when I got to Rachel, I talked to Pat Travis, the owned the restaurant. I told her I want to go back out and see if they come back again. But I was scared, and she knew it. And she said, they're not going to harm you. They're not going to harm you. If they were going to harm you, you wouldn't even be here if they wanted to harm you. She said they were probably just showing themselves to you. Well, that's what the old man a year and a half before said, that they want to show themselves to you.
Right.
So I drove out about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The sun was going down. I'm not going at night. I'm scared to death. I'm not going at night. I'm going in the afternoon. I got out there and went out on that dirt road again, just about where I was, turned around and aimed the car back at the highway. And I got out and I got in the back seat, and there's a convertible, so I sat on the trunk of the car with my feet in the back seat. And I said to them, I said, I know you're here and I know you can see me and you're hearing me. I want you to know that I was frightened to death. It scared me. But I realized you did not want to harm me because you would have already harmed me. So I just wanted you to know that I was afraid, I was frightened. But I'm here to do whatever I'm supposed to do. Whatever you want me to do, I will do. I just was frightened. And I asked them, I said, would you please do 2 favors for me if you're hearing me? And I know you're hearing me. Would you do 2 things for me? 1, don't abduct me. I don't want to go anywhere. And second, I don't want to see you in my bedroom. I don't want to see anything that will frighten me because I got a bad heart. Don't take me anywhere and don't visit me in my bedroom when I'm sleeping. But that was it. And so I thanked them and I got back in the car and drove back. And well, about 2 months later, Paul called me and said, there's a girl I heard about that is a past life regressionist. She's a psychic. And he said, I heard she is very good. You need to go see her, make an appointment with her and see how good she is. And I said, if you're so interested, why don't you make the appointment?
Yeah.
He said, no, she's much closer to you. You make the appointment and go talk to her. If she's really good, then I'll go see her. So I said, okay. So I called her Her name was Kirin, Kirin, Kirin. And I made an appointment to go get a past life regression from her. That's what she does. It's a past life regression.
Right.
So I go there and I meet her. She is on an island called Coronado Island. This is about 2 months past the event.
Right.
And so I go to see her. She's a very pretty and very sweet young girl, Kirin, but she lives by herself. So I went in the house and she has me lay on a cot.
Is that, how do you spell her name? K-A-R-E-N?
K-I-R.
Karen. Karen, not Karen.
I think there's a Japanese beer called Kirin.
Yeah. there is.
And so I go in there and she puts me on the sofa, kind of a table bed. And I'm laying there and she takes the ring and the watch and all the metal and my change in my pocket. Anything that's metal she takes off of me and puts it on the table. And then she starts laughing. And I said, "What are you laughing at?" And she said, "I'm sorry." She said, they told me something funny about you. I said, "They? Who's they?" She said, "My cosmic friends. They were telling me something about you that's funny." And I said, "What's so funny about me?" She said that they told her that I had gone up there and was frightened because they showed themselves to me and that they didn't want to wake me up. They let me sleep, but that I had gone back up there in a convertible. She was good. Nobody knew that but me. And she said, "You went back up in a new convertible you rented, and you sat on the back of the hood with your feet in the back seat, and you told them that you're willing to do whatever you're supposed to do. You have no problem with that, but don't frighten me and don't take me anywhere. I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to be frightened." And she said they thought that was funny. They were laughing at it.
They have a sense of humor.
Yeah, they have a sense of humor. And I said, "What's so funny about that?" She said, "They're telling me if you knew what you look like, where you came from, now you talk about being scared of them. If you knew what you look like from where you came from, that would really scare you. Don't worry about us. That's scary, where you came from." And so she told me.
Can I say, where we came from, are we talking about our Neanderthal?
Where I came from. She said, "They told me where you have come from, you look different today. You're a human today.
Okay.
But you would be frightened to death if you saw what you really look like where you came from." They just thought that was funny, that you're worried about them. You don't need to worry about yourself, because when you leave this world, you're going back to where you came from. Then you'll see what you really look like.
Wow.
You talk about being scared. And so she said, "They're telling me to tell you that they didn't mean to frighten you. They don't intend to take you anywhere or frighten you. They were sorry, and that they were very sorry that you were frightened. They didn't want to frighten you. They just wanted to show you that they were here." And I said, "Why me?" And she said, "They're telling me that what they want you to do later on in your life, what they have brought you here to do, you have to know that they exist, not believe they exist. You have to know it. So therefore they want to show themselves to you so you know they're here. Because what they want to ask you to do, you got to know you have backup, you got friends. You have to know that." And so that was that. And I came home and that was it. But I have had extraordinary experiences ever since. Incredible experiences. And and I know, just like I said, you don't believe, I know that they are here.
Yeah, they
There's no
have
doubt about it.
They have your back.
I haven't come face to face with them yet.
No?
No.
Oh. Don't get scared when you do. I'd like to share experience myself, similar to Mr. Jordan's story, our true story. I had so many experiences, so many times that I've ran into the terrestrials and their spacecraft. This particular story is, I was in Glendale, and I was staying at not a rehab, but like a shelter. It was a shelter. I got caught off guard without a place to stay, so I went to the Glendale shelter and I stood there. And when I got there, certain people went to that shelter, and they were not people that you would think would be at a shelter. One gentleman told me that he was a West Point graduate. And then I seen this other guy named David. He was like the whiz on the computer. So one day, David calls me and he says, he has this long blonde hair like Einstein. And he says, Robert, come over here. So I went over there, and he had his computer. And he says, did you write a letter a while back, a long time ago? I go, I don't know. I guess I did. I go, why? He says, well, I'm going to recite it to you. So he recited the email. It was an email. But computers were really coming out during that time, and emails and all that sort of thing. So he read the email, and it made me look delusional what the content of the email was. What I was doing is I was sending the email to scientists in India, explaining who I was and my theory on how the UFOs use anti-gravity and what they use. Anyway, I said, I wrote that thing a long time ago, and you found it? And he found it. And he says, don't ever send anything on emails because it's there forever, and you can't just take it back and erase it. It's there forever. So I realized that I was in there with a group of, there must have been about 4 of them that were government agents of some sort. So one day I was laying back, and I said, and I told this guy named Robert, and he was from the Air Force. And I said, I have a picture, I'm gonna go get it. So I went and got this picture, and the guy that's from the West Point, the graduate, he heard that and he ran over to see the picture. It was of a flying saucer with a force field in the pilot and the co-pilot. It was one of the first photos, one of the first good photos I took. And they looked at it and analyzed it and everything. So I realized they were from the government. They were there only to keep an eye on me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so one day Robert from the Air Force came by my bed and he says, hey Robert, what are you doing? I said, I'm not doing nothing, I'm just reading. He says, hey, why don't you go outside with me to the parking lot? It was about evening. Little dark, not too dark. No, it was going to be evening. I said, no, maybe in 20 minutes. So he left, and I was hoping he wouldn't come back and tell me, hey, what? He came back, he said, what happened? I thought you were going to meet me outside in 20 minutes. And I said, oh, I forgot. So we went outside, and when we got outside in this parking lot in Glendale, right next to Los Feliz, there's a shelter called Amigos or something. And when I looked up in the sky, it was like if I was in space. It was like I was in space, and I could see all, like if you were in a capsule and you were out in space, because the lights from the city should affect it so I couldn't see like that, right? But with the technology that Robert had from the Air Force, and they were waiting for me, and for him to take me out in the parking lot, they used some type of technology that made me look like I was out in space. I'm looking out. I said, whoa. And I see these ships. I seen a number of ships, right? I said, Robert, those are ships. How do you know? I go, because that's not the star system. Those are ships. And so he says, hey, you see that? You know about Nibiru? I go, no. He says, you see that orange star up there? Kind of orange or red?
Mm-hmm.
He said, how does it look to you? I go, it looks like it has horns on it. He goes, yeah, that's Nibiru. He'll be coming here about 1929, 1924, somewhere. I don't know what date he told me. And it's going to cause a lot of damage. And then he told me, so I looked back up in the ships, they were closer. And kind of, you know, it's kind of like when you see something like that, it kind of like rocks your brain a little bit, because everything that was happening was like so special that you're seeing something that normal people don't get to see. And so when I saw the ships, he saw that, I guess he saw that I was a little shook up, not really shook up, but a little. And like, he had to snap me out of it. So what he did is he says, hey, look it, like that. And I looked, and this ball, like a meteorite, a ball, like I say about the size of a Volkswagen or bigger, a steel ball was coming right over 200 feet, and yellowish blue flames were coming out of like a comet. And it's going right over there, 200 feet. And I'm saying, and it goes past the building, and I'm thinking, I'm going to hear the crash, right? The ba-boom. And there's no ba-boom. And I said, I looked at him, I go, that's kind of weird. And he says, he hit me with an elbow, he goes, they fooled us, huh?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's what he told me. But I realized what I was looking at was a hologram. They did all that for me. They put a hologram out there. They did all that. They showed the ships. They did all that for me.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was, you know, I felt that was very special. Really happened. And so that story, and then there was, so Robert, I believe, was probably, he was either a terrestrial, or he was from the highest unit of the Air Force.
Mm.
Yeah. And then I have this other story I'll share with you, Mr. Maxwell. When I was working for Metropolitan Transit Authority, MTA, the bus company, and I worked out here in the valley, around Sun Valley. They have a division there. So I got out of work, and I caught a ramp in Sun Valley. It's the rock quarry. They had this long ramp, and they had these high power lines. And so I'm driving, I'm tired, hungry, I'm driving my car, and I look at the power lines, and I see this thing, and I went, is that a helicopter? Or, nah, how could it be staying still and not making no noise? So I got this long ramp. As I got close to the power lines, I pulled off and pulled into the dirt part, and I'm looking up, and it's a craft about as big as a garage. And so I'm saying, I'm not going to get out. I'm going to just jump over to the passenger side, roll down the window, and look up. And this craft had a window open, and it had a light coming out. I could even see the color inside in the gate and the instruments. It was green, like county green. You ever see the county? They use the color green.
Mm-hmm.
It was that color. And this thing's next to the power lines, and it's not moving. Underneath it, it had 7 beach ball green orbs that weren't touched to nothing. They were being held magnetically somehow, but they had a clearance of about 4 inches. And so this string of pearls of green orbs was whipping like this, like a dragon's tail. Right? It was centered in the middle of this craft, right? That was kind of looked like NASA, like something that landed on the moon. And it was swinging like this, like a dragon's tail. And I said to myself, they're either happy to see me or they're going to have lunch with me.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at the window open, and I expect to see somebody go stick their head out and go, "Hey, Robert," you know, because it was about 50 feet, maybe 60 feet up. And so I'm analyzing and figured that it's drawing power out of the power lines. And they told me telepathically, "Get out of your car, Robert, come under the craft and we'll take you for a ride," because I always said I wanted to go for a ride.
Yeah.
But like Ghostbusters, when they said, "Don't think of anything bad," and the guy says, "Too late. I thought what did you think of the Marshmallow Man, the giant Marshmallow Man?" Well, I had something similar happen to me. The first thought when they told me about going with them was I had a thought that they're going to take me on a planet up there, maybe, possibly, and leave me there. And I would have no way to get back home. And I was really, really hungry. And so I told them, I said, "I'll take a rain check on that one. But I tell you, I won't turn you down the next time you come and take me for a ride." And so I didn't have a camera, otherwise I would have filmed it. And when something like that happens, you don't think about you're just kind of stunned and just watching and observing everything. And so, yeah, that was beautiful. And I couldn't believe that all the people on the ramp were going by and didn't see it.
Just you, Robert. They just.
I couldn't believe that. You know, I thought a lot of people would pull over and want to look at it too.
Yeah.
But no, I was right there. And so I told them bye, and I said, "I'm going home to eat. Sorry, guys, but I told you I'll take a rain check." They haven't came back to give me a ride yet, but when they do, I will go with them. But I hear a lot of people, you know, and they tell me, "Ooh, I would go for a ride with them." I go, "You sure? Are you really sure you'll go for a ride with them if they came and all that?"
Yeah.
Because it's easy to say that, but when it happens for reals,
Believe me, I know.
a whole different story. So that's one of my stories about running into them. I ran into them many times, and they have never shown any, I guess, traits of being aggressive or anything. Well, they did. There's different species out there. One species did show me that they were aggressive. Maybe two species. They might have been the same species, but they do have fighter aircraft up there. They have their own fighters, you know, and they showed me that they're there. They're as big as a jet aircraft, but they're there to, if somebody's aggressive to them, they will react to that. But anyway, I just wanted to share those couple of stories.
In 1959, fully 60 years ago, 1959, 60 years ago, I came to Los Angeles from Florida. I'm born and raised in Florida, and I came at 19 years old. I had to come to California because I had to come here. And so I got here. I ended up in North Hollywood. It was just a little Mickey Mouse town, just a little small town,
Wow.
about 10 miles from Hollywood, north of Hollywood. That's why they call it North Hollywood. And I got a job and a little place to live, and a room to live in North Hollywood. And on the weekends, Saturdays, I would get up and go downtown to have breakfast. But it was only about 2 blocks from town, so it was just a short walk to downtown North Hollywood. And one morning I went into a restaurant to have breakfast, and it was totally crowded. The only restaurant in town. Everybody in town was there. Totally crowded, but I saw one chair at the counter open. So I slipped through the crowd and went and sat in the chair. And when I sat down, I was sitting next to a girl. She must have been about 17, I was 19. So we started talking. I liked her, she liked me. After breakfast, we both got up and we went downtown, just walking around town. And then when we walked home, I found out she lived on the same street that I lived on. By chance, she lived on the same street, but she lived about 3 blocks from town. I only lived 2 blocks from town. So she lived in the next block. I'd never been home with her, so I didn't know exactly where she lived. I know it's close. But she knew where I lived because we always, when walking home, she'd always walk me home first. And so one night, on a Friday night, she came by my place about 10 o'clock at night. And she's knocking on the door, and I said, "What are you doing here?" She said, "My father wants to talk to you." And I said, "I don't want to talk to your father. I got nothing to say here." She said, "No, my father is very important. He said he wants to talk to you because he has something to tell you." And I thought, that's interesting. I don't even know who she's talking about. And he's got something to tell me. I was curious. I said, "Okay, I'll go with you." So I walked home with her about a block away, and for the first time I found out where she lived. And when we were walking up to her house, her father happened to just be coming out of the house. He was coming out, and I saw him, and he saw me, and he motioned for me to come on in.
Mm-hmm.
I thought to myself, maybe I don't want to come on in. I don't know who you are. I don't want to come in. But then I thought, well, if he's the father of the girl, my girlfriend, how bad could it be? So I went with her. We walked in the house, and she had a younger sister named Mary. And they both sat on the floor in the front room, and the father and I sat on a sofa, a long sofa. He sat on one end of the sofa, and I sat on the other. And he was just making small talk, asking me how I like living in California, do you have a job, and where you're living, etc., etc. So I felt better about him, even though I knew there was something strange about him because I could feel it. But I felt all right because
What did you think he was, military or intelligence?
I wasn't even thinking like that. I wasn't thinking about intelligence or military because there was something really strange about him.
Mm-hmm.
But I liked him. He was very interesting to listen to. And so he said, while we were talking, he asked me, he said, "Remember when you were in Florida?" And he said, "And your dad built a new back porch. Remember when he built that new back porch in Florida?" And I didn't know what to say because I had no idea how would he know that. Because he was right, my dad did build a back porch. I'm from Florida. And so I just looked at him, and he said, "Well, did that happen or didn't?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "And one night when you were about 8 years old, you got up in the middle of the night and you went out the back porch. And remember, the wood on the back porch your dad had used was cheap lumber. It was green, and it smelled funny at night. And you remember how you picked it with your fingernail? You picked it, the lumber, and used it as a toothpick, and you were smelling it because it smelled funny. You remember that?" And I said, "Yeah, I remember that." And he said, "Well, when you talked to God that night, when you were on the back porch, didn't you? You looked up at the moon and you talked to God." And I looked at him, I didn't know what to say, and he said, "Did you do that?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "What did you say to God?" And I said, I didn't say anything because I didn't want to show tears in front of my girlfriend, but he was scaring me because he knew too much about me. And I didn't say anything. He said, "Well, I'll tell you what you said. You said to God that you wanted to do something important with your life. You didn't want to just be born and die.
You wanted to make a difference.
You wanted to do something important with your life. is that what you said? And I said, yeah, that's what I said. He said, well, how would I know that? He said, how do I know that? I said, I don't know how you know that. He said, well, I know that because we were there. We were right next to you. You didn't see us though, did you? I said, no, I didn't see anyone. He said, no, we saw you. You didn't see us. And he said, then why are you in California? Why didn't you come to Los Angeles? I said, I don't know. I just had to come. He said, yeah, you had to come because I brought you here. I'm the one that brought you here. You come here to meet me, and I have something for you to do. And you said to God that you wanted to do something important with your life. I said, yeah, I'm going to let you do something important with your life. I got something for you to do. And he said, but it won't happen till the last part of your life. Just the very last parts of your life, we have something for you to do. And we had to bring you here and get you started. And he said, you've always been interested in UFOs and aliens? And I said, yes, I have. I've always liked that. And he said, well, would you like to see some UFOs tonight up close? And I said, yeah, I would. And he said, well, I can do that for you. Come with me. He didn't say it, the way he said it was, I can do that for you. That I can do, so come with me.
Wow.
And I said, where are we going? He said, you said you wanted to see UFOs? Yeah, well, come with me. And the girls sitting on the floor, they got up, and he and I walked out in the front lawn in North Hollywood, 1959, and we look up in the sky, and he starts inaudibly talking. His mouth is moving as if he's talking to someone, but you can't hear him. Then he turns around to me and says, I just talked to them. They said they'll be here in about a minute or two. They'll be coming over in about a minute or so. They're coming from southeast area over Griffith Park. There's a big park there. And so he said they said they'll be coming over the Griffith Park area, going north, and they'll come see you. I said, who? He said, us. You said you wanted to see UFOs and aliens, didn't you? I said, yes. He said, well, then wait, they'll be here. And they told me they're coming now. And sure enough, about a minute and a half, 2 minutes later, they did show up. 3 of them. 3 discs, round discs, the same size as a full moon in the sky. Big ones. Not little lights in the sky, but 3 discs the size of a new moon, the size of a full moon. And as the 3 came over us, they were absolutely gorgeous, making no sound whatsoever, nothing. And they stopped over the top of us. And I'm standing there looking at them, and they looked, and the bottoms was spinning colors. It's like a pie cut in 6 or 8 slices, and each slice was a different color. But they were spinning around, not to mix the colors, but just spinning around enough that you could see the different colors. But what I remember is those colors were laser colors. They were extreme colors. The greens were extremely green and brilliant, beautiful. The orange was absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, they come in colors like that you just can't recreate out here. You know, they're really great colors.
Yeah, and so he's standing there talking, inaudibly talking to them. He looks at me, and the 2 girls are behind him. The oldest one, my girlfriend, she's looking at me, and I could tell what she was thinking. She wanted to see how I was going to react to seeing this. Because obviously she's seen this many times before, but she wanted to see what I was going to do. And then the father turned to me and looked at me, and I said, this is beautiful. What are these? He said, that's us. We're here. We've come here, and that you said you wanted to devote your life to something that was important, and we have brought you here to let you do it. We have something important for you to do. And I said, who are you? And he said, who I am is not important. What you have to do is important, so you need to listen to me. And he told me, he says, you're going to do something for us, but we will pick the time and the place, not you. And we'll also, he told me, and we will make sure that very important people in the rest of the world will hear you and listen to you. We will set you up in such a way that people will listen to you, and you will take a message to people for us. And I said, what am I going to do? What am I saying? He said, no, it's not important. You'll learn. But when it comes time for you to do what we brought you here to do, you'll know what to do. You'll know. Now I know.
That is to bring the truth.
Yeah. And so he said, and then he looked up and talked, and he said, they said they're leaving now, but they'll see you later. And they did. They took off, they were very slow. They moved northward until they went over the mountain, and they're gone. And I said, that was beautiful. What was that? He says, us, we're here. And I had the feeling, I know something's wrong with him. I knew he's not right. But it was not frightening to me at all. It was fascinating. I wanted to know really who he is and what's really going on here. It was not challenging or frightening. But I now know, and I look back on it, he was doing something he was given orders to do. And that is to contact me and get me started to be who I'm going to be. And so he did. He got me interested in what I was doing and told me what I was going to have to go through in my whole life. And he said, but at the end of your life, you have something to do, and we're going to put you there and make sure you do it. And that's why you're here in California, because I brought you here.
Wow.
I thought, wow, what a story.
That's amazing. But it's not amazing to me because I understand that there are people, the normal people or people don't know anything about this. They think, oh, that's too incredible. But
well,
real.
I have a friend that was telling me that I was speaking as a speaker at a UFO conference in Pasadena a long time ago, back in the mid-90s.
Mm-hmm.
And the people, the two guys that were putting this conference on, called me in my office in Glendale. And they said, do you want to go with us? We're going to go to the hotel that we're going to be meeting at next week. We just want to go to the hotel and check it out. You want to go with us? I said, yeah, I'd love to. So the three of us went to this motel. Big hotel. It was a very large hotel. And the big meeting room was extra large. And so while we were there, one of them asked me, one of the guys putting it on asked me, what do you need to do what you're going to do? What do you need? You need a blackboard, slide presentation? What do you need? And I said, no, what I want is just a table on the stage with the chair, so I can lay out all my papers and books and just talk to the audience. And he said, all right, then what we'll do is we'll put a camera behind you. We'll get a guy will sit behind you on a bar stool with a camera, and he will have the camera right there. So when you're talking to the audience, you pick up the paper and hold it like this.
They can see it.
So they can see it, and we'll have closed circuit television.
Wow.
So people can read what you're reading.
Awesome.
So the next week, that's what happened. And I talked for about 2.5 hours, extemporaneous talk. And he was there, videotaping me. So after the event was over, the guy that was filming me came up to me and said, Jordan, my wife and I would like to have you come over for dinner tonight. And I said, yeah, I'm open to that. He said, so he lived right there in Pasadena. And so I went over to his house with him, and his wife went in the kitchen. She was fixing dinner for him and I, and we sat in the front room, him and I just talking about stuff. And finally, after about 15 minutes or so, she comes out of the kitchen, and she says to her husband, have you told him yet? And he said, no, I haven't said anything. I wasn't going to tell him anything until after lunch, after dinner. And I said to him, I don't like surprises. What do you mean you haven't told me? What have you not told me? And he said, well, I'll tell you now, because I've told the story to so many people, and my wife has heard me many times. Now I'll tell you something. He said, well, I just turned 50 years old. But when I was 17 years old, I was living on the East Coast. And one summer, I was thumbing my way north to go stay with my cousin after school, to stay with him. And an old man in a pickup truck, it was an old, dirty, smelly pickup truck. And he said he was smoking cigars, cigarettes, anything that would burn, he was smoking it. And he said he's smoking and it smelled bad, but at least it's got wheels. So he said, so I got in, he picked me up, I got in, and as we took off, he began to tell me, the old man began to tell me everything about my life exactly correct. He told me about my mother and my father and his work and my girlfriend and what I was doing at school. There was nothing he didn't know absolutely correct.
You know what that's similar to is the X-Files, where the man with the cigarette that always comes around once in a while in the series X-Files. He's a top government person, and Agent Mober. He just knows exactly what this guy is involved in. It's even higher than the FBI.
Oh yeah, he knew everything about me.
It's higher than the FBI.
So he said to me, that was some 30 some odd years ago, or 34 years ago. He said, I just turned 50 years old. About a week ago, I turned 50 years old. And he said, when he let me out, when he finally let me out, he said to me, everything I have told you, I wanted to tell you to get your attention. Now I'm going to tell you something important. You need to remember this. When you're after 50 years old, you're going to be on the other side of this country after 50 years old. And one morning, you're going to find yourself sitting on a stage in front of a man sitting at a table with papers and books. And you're going to be sitting right behind him with a camera. So when he holds the paper up, people can see it in the audience. He said that camera does not exist now, but it will then, 50 years from now. And when that happens, you just remember what I'm telling you. You tell that person at the table, I put him there. He works for me. I'm the one who put him there. So don't forget that. And so he said, so today I'm sitting on the stage with the camera behind you, and it finally registered. This is what he said I would be doing after 50 years old. And I just turned 50 years old. And so I got scared. It really frightened me. So I got up and left. I got up and walked downstairs and walked down the boulevard. I was really scared. I was shaking. What was that all about? And he came out and followed me and caught up with me. And he said, I didn't mean to frighten you. I'm just telling you what the old man said. He told me to tell you. And today I'm sitting on the platform with you. And he said I wouldn't be doing that some 30 some odd years ago. He told me to tell you that he put you there.
He was a time traveler.
Huh?
He was a time traveler.
Oh yeah, I think so. Something like that.
Yeah. He was telling you something. I mean, I've experienced time travel. I told you about that story of
Yeah.
Doheny.
Jordan, really quick, back when in '59 you were in North Hollywood, you forgot the end part when you went back. One day you went back to visit them to their house again.
Oh.
And when you went to Palm
Yeah, my girlfriend with her father. I used to go to see them almost every other day. I walked down because they're only a block away. One morning I got up on a Saturday morning, I went down to see them, and they're gone. They're just gone. The whole house was empty. The windows were all open, doors were all open, there's nobody there. They didn't tell me they were leaving. I didn't, and I was really disappointed because the girlfriend didn't tell me she was leaving. And the father didn't say anything. Nobody said anything. They're just gone. And I have never seen them since.
Wow.
But I realize now, I now look back on it, I now understand. I think he was there to get me started on my path in life. That was his job, to get me started. After he talked to me and I was fascinated with him, then he left. He got me started. He told me, he said, I'm going to give you a book. And he went in the house and pulled off this book, a large, thick book, and gave it to me. He said, this book will get you started on the path to where you're going, where you're going to go. This book will help you get started. So take this book as a gift. The book was called The Complete Works of Charles Fort, F-O-R-T, The Complete Works of Charles Fort. It's 3 different books all put together. The Complete Works of Charles Fort.
And what was he?
It was a book full of, from cover to cover, of all the strangest things that have happened on this earth that nobody knows anything about and nobody has any explanations at all. Things that cannot be explained. Strange things that have happened that nobody can explain it.
Right,
And
like,
this
like
Charles
frogs
Fort.
dropping out of the sky.
Yeah, I had to have come from somebody. But Charles Fort just made a list of all the strangest things in the world that have happened that nobody knows how they happened or why. And nobody has any explanation. But that got me thinking about everything that's happening in the world, and it educated me for the first time at 19 years old.
Wow.
I was becoming fascinated with all the dark stuff going on in the world that I didn't know anything
All the
about.
things in plain sight that people don't really,
People know nothing about.
they don't focus on it.
And Jordy, you guys were going with the family trip to Palmdale with this, your girlfriend and your dad and your mom. You guys were going to Palmdale.
Yeah. Well, sometimes when I would go to see her and her father was there, we would go out for breakfast, him and his wife, and my girlfriend and her sister and myself. We'd take a drive and we'd go up to Palmdale and go for breakfast first. And then we would go out for a long drive in Palmdale. I remember that. And he would tell me about the extraterrestrials that are here. They're here and they live underground.
Yeah.
And he was telling me about
He
them.
knew all about it.
Yeah. And so we went to this one mound. There's a big mound out in Palmdale, but it's way out in Palmdale. And the mound had an opening. And we went in and we walked down the long, long tunnel. And we got way, way down, about a block down there. And then we stopped and he said, this is as far as you can go. We can't go any further. I said, why? And he said, because they know we're here. They're watching us.
Yeah.
And he says, so if I go any further, they're going to do something. I don't want them to do anything. So we don't go any further. And so my girlfriend turned around and started back up. She went back to see her mom. And he and I stood there talking for a few moments. And he said that they're here and they've been watching us coming down. But they know that I can only go so far and they know where it is. And if I go over that, they're going to come do something about it. He said, I don't want to deal with that. So I'm just bringing you down here to show you that there are people living here.
Oh yeah. And I suspect why we have a lot of aerospace in near Palmdale
Yeah,
yeah, we got it right in that area.
in Palmdale.
Yeah. Got Lockheed, Boeing, and all those.
You're right. You know, I hadn't ever really thought about that.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why everything is happening up in Palmdale.
Yeah.
Because that's where all the big Lockheed and Skunk Works and all that stuff is happening.
Yeah. Right.
There's a reason for it. So
Exactly.
I hadn't thought about that till you mentioned that,
Yeah.
but that's true. So I don't know what to say. All I know is that we went down a long tunnel and we got to the point where he stopped and said, we can't go any further. This is it right here. I said, why? He said, because they're watching us. They know we're here and they know that I know that we can't go any further. And if we go any further, they're going to deal with us. so we don't go in front, we turn around and go home.
I want to ask you, when I was here last week, and when I went out there
Good question.
and said, I'm going to bring in a ship for you, Mr. Maxwell. And I went out there and I did
Yeah,
that.
and sure enough, it showed up.
It showed up on a
Yeah.
ship.
And what was funny is when I saw it, it just boom, just
Just
lit
appeared
up.
like that. Boom.
And then it moved across the sky very slow,
Yeah.
and then boom, it
It dissipated. Or it's
disappeared.
gone, yeah.
It's gone.
It either closed itself, I suspect, or it went into another dimension. But it was, for being as high as it was, it's a pretty huge ship.
Yeah, well, I understood because I know enough that when you see a light come on and it moves and then boom, it's gone, there's something going on.
Oh yeah, it came because I told you I was going to bring it in.
Yeah.
Now I was not wondering. I wanted to ask you: am I the person you think that you're supposed to meet at this time in this year?
Well, I was told by my girlfriend's father, we have something for you to do, but it won't happen till the last part of your life. And we will decide when and where and what you're to do. We'll decide that, not you.
Right.
But when it comes time to do what we want you to do, we will make sure that you are well known around the world and people will listen to you.
Right.
You need to know that.
You will know it when it happens.
And people will listen to you.
Oh, great.
And he said, and I forgot to tell you that when I got back to San Diego from the little alien, I drove back to San Diego, and my friend Paul, who was sitting in the back seat, he called me. I think I said this to you, that he called me and said there was a girl who was a past life regressionist, and that she lives in San Diego. And he called me and said, "Why don't you call her and go talk to her, and get a session with her?" And I said, "Well, if you're so interested in her, why don't you call her? I don't care about her." And he said, "No, she's closer to you. So you call her and you talk with her, and if she's really good, then let me know. I'll go see her." I said, "Okay." So I called her and we made an appointment to go see her. And when I got there, she was a very sweet girl, very nice, but she was living by herself in this house. And so when I went in, she had me lay down on this stretcher kind of thing you see in a hospital. And you take off all your rings, your watch, any metal, you take it all off of you. And then she starts talking. And then she was laughing and talking.
She was channeling, huh?
And so I asked her, I said, "Karen, who are you talking to?" Because I thought she's in the house by herself. But she's talking to somebody else.
She's channeling.
Yeah. And she said, "I'm talking to your friends who brought you here."
Yeah, she was.
And I said, "What do you mean, my friends who brought me here? You mean to your home?" She said, No, who brought you to the earth. You've come from somewhere else, but you've come to do something. They brought you here to do it. And I'm talking to them. And they're telling me about how you rented your convertible and drove up to Area 51, and they saw you before. And you sat on the back of your convertible and told them you didn't want to be frightened or didn't want to go anywhere. But you don't mind doing whatever it is you're supposed to do. And she says, "So I'm talking to them." And they thought it was funny. I said, "What's so funny about that?" And she said, "Well, if you knew what you look like, where you came from, and you're talking about you don't want to see them because they might frighten you. Yeah, wait till you see what you look like when you go back home. You'll find out."
I like to say a story, something like that, a little bit. I work in the movie sets, right? And I do security, watching all the equipment and everything. And we were doing a show somewhere around 4th Street, 8th Street. It was 8th Street and Wilshire. And my phone started running out of power, and this woman was coming out of one of the shops, but we already had paid all the shops to be closed for that day, for the film. And I said, excuse me, could I use your power to charge up my phone? And she looked at me, and she was kind of a little heavy set. And she said, you're a warrior, you know that? You're an old soul.
She said you were an old soul?
She said, you're an old soul. And you keep coming back, and they keep killing you. I go, how do they kill me? But you're right, I am an old warrior, and I am an old soul. She goes, they always use a woman to kill you. So be careful with the women. And then she said, but there is a woman that's going to come in your life, and her name is Karen. I think, yeah, she goes, it's Karen. So when you said Karen, I was just wondering, you know. Yeah. So she said, it's Karen, and she's going to help you. And she was a gypsy. That was one of her gypsy, you know, where she did her thing. And so it was when, you know, talking about those type of people. I had a girlfriend named Eva, and she used to do a lot of meditation and things like that. And she would always tell me, Bingy, because my last name, you're number one, Bingy. And I go, Eva, I don't feel like number one. You're number one, Bingy. And I go, you know, she goes, when are you going to feel like number one? I said, well, the day that I'm at a restaurant and somebody asks me, they know my name and they ask me for an autograph and to take a photo with them, then I'll feel like number one. Yeah. And then it happened, but Eva passed away. And then one day I was at a restaurant, and this actor named Sebastian, he came up to me and said, Robert Bingham? I go, yes. Can I take a picture with you and have your autograph? And I looked up and I go, Eva. And my logo is like this, right there, that finger pointing up. And it's just that those similarities, those type of people, you know, and I'm losing my train of thought, but Eva was very psychic and things like that. And she would always tell me things. And she had a different, I mean, I have my way, my paranormal gifts, you know, and she had her paranormal gifts. And so you know, it's just, I kind of lost my way right now. But anyway, yeah, I felt that Karen, when you mentioned her name, was a person I'm supposed to meet. But I don't know. Maybe the gypsy woman kind of seen it, and she said Karen instead of Karen. Maybe. But
I have a friend that worked in the movies, motion picture business, and he was working with Steven Spielberg. Mm-hmm. And he said they were shooting a commercial, as Steven Spielberg was shooting a commercial, but it was way down in Orange County in Los Angeles, way past Los Angeles County, down in Orange County. And it was all like a wilderness area, not built up at all, mm-hmm. Wilderness area. And he said, but all of us, everybody working on this project, had a scooter, motor scooter, mm-hmm. because they're too far to go walking anywhere. And he said, but Steven Spielberg had a golf cart. He ran around his golf cart.
Four-wheel drive golf cart.
Yeah, he moved all around with his golf cart. And he said that we all had scooters. And he said, one day I was at lunch, at the lunch truck, and I saw Spielberg coming in his golf cart. He said, I ran out and got on my scooter and cranked it up. And as he passed me, I pulled right in behind him. He said, I wanted to go say hello to Stephen because I'm working on this project. I wanted to be able to say I talked to him. And he said, so I come up behind him on my motor scooter, and he turned around acknowledging that he heard a motor scooter behind him. He didn't turn all the way to see who I was. He just heard there was a motor scooter. And he turned around, and then he turned back around and looked up in the sky and said, yes. And he said, the moment he shook his head yes in the sky, two men in black suits with sunglasses and black suits, everything was in black. They popped up out of nowhere. There was no place for them to hide. There was level ground, and there was no trees or bushes. But these two men just popped up on the road, and they put their hands out. And he said, I almost hit them. I had to stop quickly because I would hit them. And he said that one of them said, who are you? What are you doing here? And he said, I told them. I'm just working with Steven Spielberg, and I wanted to say hello to him. That's why I was trying to catch up with him. And that guy said to him, turn around and go back to work. Leave him alone. Turn around and go back to work. And he said, so he meant it. He said, I could tell he meant what he was saying.
Yeah.
So he said, so I turned my scooter around. I started to leave, and he said, I turned back around, and they're gone.
Everybody's gone?
Huh?
Those two guys in black are gone?
Yeah, two guys just, boom, they're gone.
Wow.
Interesting.
And so he said,
That is very interesting, almost like extraterrestrial.
yeah. There was no place to hide. He said they just popped up out of nowhere. Boom, they're there. And they told him, but Spielberg shook his head, yes.
Yeah, they probably told him in the headphone, do you want us to stop this man, Steve?
Yeah, and so you want us to come help you? He said, yeah.
Yeah.
So he shook his head, yes, and boom, they popped up.
Wow. Hey,
So
Jordan,
that tells
Let's
me
take-
something
go ahead.
about, that tells me something about Steven Spielberg.
Yep.
Yeah.
Jordan, will you feel comfortable talking about October 2020 or
Oh,
next
yeah.
time?
I've been talking on radio about the coming problems that I was made aware of that was going to happen to the Earth in the year 2020 in October of this year. And we're in October now. We're in early October. Well, I was told that something very serious was going to happen to the whole Earth in October. Something very, very serious. It has something to do with the business of living. Maybe a stock market, maybe communications between nations or people.
Do you suspect, do you think we might have a nuclear exchange?
That's what I'm thinking. That's what I was thinking.
That's what I'd suspect. Some type of, not all out nuclear exchange, but some
Yeah.
nuclear exchange.
That's what I was
That
thinking.
everybody's gonna wake up and say, oh my God, it really happened.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking.
You know, in my podcast, I always say, wake up, smell the coffee, and know what time it is. It's 1 minute to midnight.
That's right. It's real close.
So
now.
Jordan, what do you think, your thoughts on October 2020, how long, what kind of gonna happen worldwide?
Well, I was told that whatever is going to happen, first of all, is going to be so severe that the whole world will be involved. All nations and all people, it will be like 9/11 in New York. But this time it will be for the whole world, not just New York. It's going to be for the whole earth.
Wow.
Something is going to happen. Everybody on the earth is going to know about it and be affected by it.
Wow.
And he said, and I was then told that whatever it is that's going to happen, it's going to take 1.5 years till the earth gets back to normal again. But it will get back to normal, but it'll take 1.5 years from October. So it begins in October, but 1.5 years later. And so I was concerned, first of all, for what's going to happen in October.
Correct.
But second, I'm even more concerned, you got 1.5 years after that before things get back to normal. What does that mean? You're going to be in for 1.5 years in some sort of a terrible situation? Yeah, that's what I was told. And the person that told me that, he has told me many times things, he's prophesied many things to me, and every time he says something, it happens exactly the way he says it. So I've come to trust him. Every time he tells me something, it always happens. And so that's why I'm going out on a limb and saying that I think something is going to happen in this October, and we're in October.
Correct.
It may be the last part of October, which is Halloween,
Right.
2020.
Right.
That's when you get clear vision as 2020.
That's
Right.
right. 2020
You get
vision.
full vision at 2020.
Yeah,
Very
people are
true.
gonna
So-
really see things.
Huh?
Yeah, they're gonna see things.
Jordan, was this your connection with the same person that told you about COVID-19 before it happened?
Yeah,
He said that to you?
yeah, he told me that was going to happen.
And he came.
Yeah, and he told me also many years ago, a couple of years ago, he said, he called me one day and he said, Jordan, I'm looking at the stars.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, something is going to be on the web, it's going to be on YouTube. And it's all going to be based on you and your work. Everything you've been talking about is going to be put into a video, and the video is going to be put on the web. And he said it's going to make you famous because it's going to really be big, and it's going to be based on you. And he said, but it won't happen till September of next year. I can tell you exactly when. He gave me a date in September, mid-September, about 15. Something's going to happen to you.
Right.
I gotta go to the
Hold
restroom.
on.
Can we take a break?
Yeah. I agree. Great.
Hello.
You